What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very important episode for you guys. Okay, in today's video, we've got the two most important exercises for each body part, and I'll tell you why this is important. Whether you're doing push-pull legs, whether you're doing an upper-lower split, or whether you're doing a back and bicep, right, chest, tricep, which is kind of like push-pull legs, or you're doing like, I don't know, back and shoulders, right? These are going to give you two exercises to take from each muscle group and apply them to your program. Because if you're not doing them, they're costing you greatly in gains, health, functionality, mobility, and strength, and hypertrophy, okay? Caveat here also, if you're doing a chest, back, right, biceps, tricep, if you're doing one of those bro splits, right, you're also going to want to incorporate a couple of these. Now, caveat, we've got legs and glutes, so we got like the hamstring, the quad, and then the butt, okay? So you're going to see 4 different exercises here, 2 for the legs, 2 for the glutes, probably actually more 5 or 6 because I'm going to cover the hamstrings and the quads. And as we come to the shoulders and the back, right, we know we have vertical and horizontal pushes and pulls, right? So the horizontal pushes will be covered in the chest because that's predominantly chest work. The horizontal pushes will be covered in the shoulders because that's overhead work. And then the back, you'll see 4 different exercises, 2 horizontal pulls, and of course, 2 vertical pulls because we have to cover that because they're 2 different angles, right? So it's going to hit the lat more predominantly on one area, and it's going to hit the rhomboids, right, the lower traps and other muscles predominantly in other areas. And then, of course, we have the abs, okay? And then we have the arms, so 2 biceps, 2 triceps. So let's break this down, all right? So we got starting off the legs and the glutes. So whether you have a designated leg day or you're combining legs with any other muscle group on this list here, right? It's important that if we're going to start off with the legs, we cannot start out with the legs and the glutes without talking about the squat for the quads and, of course, the glutes. Now, I don't care what kind of squat you do, okay? Let me be very specific here. I understand some people have knee problems. Some people are super tall. And so if you're squatting and you're like 6'6", right? Gravity exists and it's going to pull you forward, and the barbell squat may not be an option for you. I understand that. But there's still a drop squat you can do with holding a dumbbell or maybe utilizing the hex bar. I have a hex bar in my gym, right? Or you're doing a wall squat if you're recovering from in physical therapy, right? And I'm also a PT aide, so in the clinic that I go to, that I work at, right? We have patients all the time. They're either doing some sort of sit to stand, which is a version of a squat, or some sort of wall squat with a physio ball behind them. But regardless if you're recovering from rehab, right? Or if you're just trying to get gains using a barbell back squat for strength, or a goblet squat, or a drop squat to teach yourself how to squat, if your knees are okay with it, you better be doing a variation of a squat, even if it's a split squat, right? Or a lunge. A lunge is just a squat done on one leg, right? If I kick my leg back here and I squat down, all it is a squat done from a staggered stance position. So you should be doing some sort of squat. Next, we're going to get the hamstrings this time. And this time we're going to get the hamstrings in the form of, and the hamstrings and the glutes working together in some form of RDL. RDL just means Romanian or stiff-legged, right, deadlift. Now, this exercise is important because it puts the hamstrings on a big stretch. So if I have a barbell here, I stick my hips back, my hamstrings get a good stretch. I come up, my hamstrings are working in synergistic fashion with my glutes. They're helping my glutes drive that hip forward. So that's going to be a good way to get your hamstrings and your glutes in one shot. And that's important. Why is that important? Because your glutes and your hamstrings drive hip extension, which hip extension is going to strengthen up those glutes and, of course, your hamstrings to ensure proper posture, to ensure less back pain, right? That your back's not taking all the loads, right? And to ensure that you're not just training the anterior chain of your body, but the posterior chain as well. So we've got the squat, we've got the RDL. Another one here I'm going to write. We're going to hit the glutes again and the hamstrings, predominantly the glutes, is a hip thrust or a glute bridge, okay? This is super important because one way I try to tell if people have weak glutes is when I get them on my evaluation table here in the gym, is I'll have them do this exercise, because if I see them arching through their back or say they feel their back on this exercise, we don't know how to use our butt. We don't know how to use hip extension. And that's important. It's important to be able to extend the hip properly with the glutes. So how do we test for that? We can use, again, if you are in rehab, you can do this with just your body weight. If you are trying to progress this, you can do a single leg. You can load it up on a barbell. You have hip thrust machines. There's so many things you can do in order to train this exercise. Okay, so we've got that. Next, coming back around, we're going to hit the quads again. We've already covered a split squat or some sort of squat stance. In order to hit the quads again now, we're going to have some sort of lunge. But Shane, isn't that the same as a squat or a split squat? No. What's the difference? Well, I'll take it for back from a minute there. Yes, it's the same staggered stance, and it is just like a squat. The difference is we can be more mobile. A lunge, you can either go forward, or a lunge, you can either go backwards, right? When I think of a lunge versus a split squat, a lunge is mobile. A lunge is moving. A lunge is alternating. A lunge can be worked side to side in multiple planes of motion. So when I say lunge here, I don't just mean up and down. I mean a side lunge. I mean a walking lunge. I mean a reverse lunge and a forward lunge. And you can load that sucker up with a barbell. Or you could side lunge for mobility with dumbbells. Or you could just do your body weight and play around with your flexibility and range of motion. Either way, if you're not doing the lunge, you're missing out on a ton of benefits there that you could be in your hypertrophy, not just your strength, but also your mobility and your flexibility too. So please consider doing the lunge. Okay, now moving on to everybody's favorite, right? You can see the mic popping up there. We got chest. Okay, now of course, we would not be talking about chest training unless I mentioned the bench press. Okay, bench press is number one. Now, if you have bad shoulders or you have had a labrum surgery or any sort of rotator cuff surgery, do not do this with a barbell, please. In fact, maybe it's best you don't even do this with dumbbells, okay? If you've had any type of shoulder surgery, then please, for the love of God, do not do this exercise. Instead, what you're going to do is you're going to do the bonus to this, and this exercise's cousin. This is an honorable mention here, which is the push-up, okay? And the reason you're going to do the push-up here is because you can modify this to make it as easy as you want on your shoulders by doing it from a chair. You can do it from your knees. You can add targets like a shoe or a box or whatever you want to add a target, and you can do that on your knees. There's many ways you can adjust the push-up to make it easier on your shoulder. For the love of God, if you have shoulder issues, do not bench press. Do not use excess dumbbell weight or barbell weight. But if you do have healthy shoulders, you better be loading up the bench press because it's one of the most standard exercises that you can do and that you can perform. And it's ultimately going to increase your strength and your hypertrophy. Now, there's multiple ways you could bench press. Don't just go into the gym every single day for the rest of your life and flat barbell bench press. Okay? Put the thing at an incline. Add some dumbbells to get some proprioception in there. Okay? You can switch it around. I promise. It's okay. Now, we had the honorable mention of the push-up here, and you can absolutely do both of those. But there is one I want to mention, and that is some sort of fly/cable crossover. Now, I put cable crossover here because, right, we could do dumbbell flies with dumbbells. We could do it with a machine. We could do it with cables, right? There's a lot of variation in a fly here, which is why I added. The reason I put cable crossover, if you have access to a cable machine, is we know that the chest, right, does horizontal adduction, right? Bringing the arm across the body here. So it takes my arm here, come completely across the body, right? That is the full range of motion of the chest, bringing its insertion point on the humerus here, all the way to here, right? That's important. But here's the thing. Even with a fly, a dumbbell fly, you're stopped short in the middle. A cable crossover allows you to cross over and get that full contraction across that you can't with really any other option here. So if I had to choose between one of these two and I have access to a cable machine, I'm going with the cable crossover, okay? Next, shoulders. This is an easy one, okay? I'm going to throw in some honorable mentions here. Now, the two exercises that we're going to do that you have to include are the barbell shoulder press, or not the barbell/dumbbell shoulder press. Okay? And of course, the side lateral raise, okay? Side lateral raise. These two are a staple point. We're training the anterior delt here, right? And we're getting that strength and pressing overhead. And then, of course, we have that medial delt, which is going to create that V shape here, right? Coming out to the side. Now, usually I would just leave off with these two. But there's something important that the shoulder also does, and it does rotation. And if you're not training that posterior deltoid, you're leaving a crap ton of gains on the table. Now, I could add that in my back, right, section, because technically that's a pull, but it's the shoulder that does rotation. It's the shoulder girdle, not necessarily the back. Back does a lot of retraction work, but it doesn't do a lot of rotation work. So it's super important, right, that we add something of that in. So while these two are staples, another staple is going to be, right, some sort of face pull, right? Some sort of face pull here leading with the thumbs, right? Or some sort of external and internal, mainly external, okay? Mainly external. I'm going to circle external, right? Rotation, whether that's with a band, right? A band that you can use or a cable column, right? Or you're doing it 90-90, right? But some sort of external rotation and a little bit of internal rotation work is going to be important. So these are honorable mentions here, okay? Highly recommend including those in. Next, we got arms. Now we're going to have some fun. We got 2 triceps and 2 biceps. Now, covering the biceps first. First one's going to be some sort of barbell curl. Barbell, or actually, I'm going to change my answer here last minute. And what I'm going to change it to is actually going to be the incline curl. And the reason I'm actually changing it to the incline curl is because we get a nice stretch reflex at the bottom and can come all the way up to squeezed at the top. Okay? If you don't have access to a bench and dumbbells for an incline curl, then a standard normal barbell curl, if you have access to a barbell, would be sufficient. But I'm going to go with the incline curl here. You get a nice stretch reflex at the bottom, and then to cover more distance for full range of motion, you got to come all the way up at the top and squeeze. Next, another exercise that's great for the biceps is hammer curls. Now, why hammer curls? Hammer curls are extremely important because with the bicep, we have a muscle that lies under called the brachialis. Not just the biceps brachii, but the brachialis, which lies underneath the bicep, that when it gets trained, pushes up against the bicep, making it look even bigger. But not just that, when we train for hammer curls, right, we can go cross body, and we can train a lot of other muscles that don't necessarily get trained if we're doing standard, right, underhand supinated bicep training. This is a muscle that we still want to be strong, and we don't want it to be underactive. And with training the brachialis and training a hammer curl, we train the brachioradialis, which is a muscle within the forearm. So that gets 2 extra muscles in there just from switching the grip. Now, yes, we are going to lose some of that supination that's going to target the biceps brachii, right, as much, but that's why we got the incline curls in here, so we can take care of that. Next, triceps. We've got skull crusher. Okay, now, you can do this either on a bench or laying on the floor, and it's an incredible exercise to get full extension over the head while training the triceps. The focus here is don't just move your arms all the way up, that's working the lat. Just extend and flex the elbow to work the elbows. You can pretend I'm laying on my back there, right? Another reason I love this exercise is it's going to highlight mobility weaknesses, because if you're super tight in your shoulders, you're not going to be able to get your arms overhead in that position. My other favorite over here, right, is a tricep kickback. Now, before you go ahead and scream at me and say, what, the kickback, what do you mean? There are very little exercises where we're able to get our arm extended completely behind our body, but the kickback is one of them. The kickback is a great way to train that medial head of the tricep and get some of the long head by getting the arm through full extension. So I don't know why the kickback gets a ton of rep. If you're doing it properly, it's great for you. So you absolutely should be incorporating the kickback in some of your programs. Okay, next we got the back. And no back program would be complete for me without the lat pull down. I love the lat pull down so much that I actually bought and built a lat pull down in my gym here, and it is right over there. And I spent my own money and my own time till 1 o'clock in the morning building this machine. Why? Because for people that are not strong enough to do pull-ups, we need a way to get them to have a vertical pull in their program. But a lot of people aren't strong enough to do pull-ups yet. And if pull-ups were versatile for the vast majority of the population, it'd be on my list because of how much I believe in them. But because I understand that it's a harder exercise to do and a lot of people can't necessarily do them, we're going with the lat pull down here. because everyone can do a lat pull down. It's a great way to teach shoulder depression first and then pulling with the lat to set the shoulder in place. You could do it underhand for that or overhand. It's a great way to teach engagement of these muscles that depress the shoulder. You don't even have to complete the movement to practice it. I do it with my clients all the time to teach scapular depression as a way that can be programmed in all of the other lifts, such as the bench press, the shoulder press, and many others within this program. So for that, the lat pull down comes in at a big one for me. The next one is, you can see I'm a big fan of incline stuff here, the incline row. The incline row is, again, another easy exercise that you can do without having to put yourself in a strenuous position like a barbell row that can easily be overloaded and corrective at the same time. Because again, you have to understand, I'm a corrective exercise specialist, and I want to get those little rhomboid muscles working. I want to get the lower and mid trap muscles working. So if I put you in a chest supported position on the bench at the incline row, and I have you depress your shoulder blades first before you even pull the weight, and then bring those scapulas together in retraction, allow the rhomboids to work, and then let you pull the arms, I can get that whole mid back working in no time. So for that reason, these two are my favorite back exercises, and I will choose them over almost any other whenever I do my programming. I guess a couple honorable mentions here would of course be the pull-up if you're capable of doing one, right? And then the single arm row, because I just love adding in single arm movements to train for muscle imbalances every now and then. But if you have to go with two and you're only short on time, you better be doing these two, and those are my favorite. Next, ab exercises, okay? And when we talk about ab exercises, for me, when I think of abs, I think of stability. Crunches and sit-ups are fun and dandy, but they can often, if you're having back pain, worsen that back pain. And oftentimes, when people do flexion and extension, especially from the bottom up with their legs, like on a leg lifts, they're just working their hip flexors. So I don't think that it's the most optimal exercise to do. I actually think that a plank progressed properly, a properly progressed plank is one of the best ab exercises you can ever possibly do. Why? Because it allows you to progress in so many ways. If you follow my Instagram at Shane Hoffman Fitness, you should go follow me, and you should also leave a like on this video and subscribe. Then you will see me pulling a 45-pound plate while keeping stable through the movement. That's hard to do on your abs. And guess what? It's an advancement that you can use. And you can also regress the plank by going down onto your knees. And you can increase the difficulty through the usage of time, increased time, through the usage of plyometrics, through a bunch of things. The plank is a very versatile exercise that you can progress. And finally, my last favorite exercise, adding some rotation, is going to be a wood chop, right? A wood chop, and you can use either a cable for this, right? A banded twist, or if you have a med ball, you can do a med ball twist, right? Or even if you have dumbbells, be careful of your spine. You can use dumbbells and allow for some rotation, getting those obliques in there. So we have anti-rotation and stability with a plank, and then we have some sort of rotational movement with the wood chop. But what about my flexion and extension, Shane? Listen, I agree that flexion and extension has a place here, and crunches could be an honorable mention on this list. But you know what you could do with your wood chop? Load that sucker up and add your extension top down with your rotation. Now you're getting flexion, right? Flexion of the spine with rotation. Two birds, one stone. From there, my last honorable mention is the hanging leg raise, because I do believe that it does put you in a position, right, of instability, forcing the core, to work a little bit harder. Well, guys, at the end of this episode, now you probably can't even read half this stuff through all my writing here, but I hope that you took notes and I hope that you paid attention, because if you pick exercises from this whole lecture here, from this list here, for each, no matter what split you're doing, push-pull legs, upper lower split, right, chest, tricep, whatever it is, you pick these exercises, your gains, your mobility, and your hypertrophy are going to skyrocket. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. My name is Shane Hoffman. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.